Hi, I'm Femi OK, and you're in the stream. Today, Americans are mourning yet another mass shooting. We'll hear from survivors of gun violence how their lives were changed forever. So a week ago, there was a mass shooting in a church in Charleston. So many conversations off the back of that tragic event. Malika Bilal, you're always across what's happening online. What are you seeing?
Oh, most of those conversations online that you mentioned were focusing on race, but there
Right.
are a few people who are trying to bring up something else. That's someone like Bert, who on Twitter, who says, oddly, this debate focused on the use of the Confederate flag, not guns. And this next tweet is from Dave, who says, racism needs to be addressed. However, let's not forget this atrocity is deeply entwined with the U.S.'s flawed gun laws. So that's exactly what we'll talk about in today's show. We want your help, as always. Tweet us with hashtag AJStream.
My name is Kobe Williams. I'm a National Community Coordinator for Ceasefire/Cure Violence. I go around training people to do this same type of work we do in Chicago, and I'm in the stream right now.
The shooting in Charleston last week has revived the familiar conversation of gun control in the United States. President Barack Obama has expressed the frustration of many in a speech and a series of tweets. On June the 20th, he wrote, here are the stats. Per population, we kill each other with guns at a rate of 297 times more than Japan, 49 times more than France, 33 times more than Israel. Expressions of sympathy aren't enough. It's time we do something about this. Advocates are standing their ground, though, saying they will not give up their weapons. It's a right guaranteed to them by the Constitution. And today, an even greater majority of Americans say that protecting gun rights is more important than controlling gun ownership. Americans own between 270 and 300 million guns. That's roughly one gun for every person, and more than 30,000 people are killed by firearms every year. So, while the gun debate continues, we want to speak to people directly affected by gun violence. In Newtown, Connecticut, Abby Clements is a former teacher at Sandy Hook Elementary School and now works with Everytown for gun safety. In Phoenix, Arizona, Jennifer Longdon is a gun violence survivor. In Alturas, California, Philip Daniel Russo lost his wife Sheila in a mass shooting last year. And in Chicago, Nate Pendleton lost his daughter Hadiya in 2013 to gun violence. So thank you, everybody, for being part of this. It's going to be a tough conversation. Jennifer, when people ask you why you're in a wheelchair, what do you tell them?
Well, I tell them that I have a spinal cord injury as a result of a random shooting. I was shot in the back in a random attack 10 years ago.
I want to play you a news clip. It's a very familiar news clip from the last couple of days. It's from a local news channel. Have a listen to this.
Breaking news, 9 people have been killed after a shooting inside a historic African-American church in Charleston, South Carolina. It happened inside the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in downtown Charleston. We're told 8 of the victims died inside the church. Another victim died at the hospital.
Jennifer, when you heard that, can you remember what it was like?
Absolutely. Coincidentally, I was sitting with a Sandy Hook survivor when the breaking news came over our phones. And, instantly we knew the pain and the confusion and just the unending grief that these families and this community now face.
I'm looking at a picture here, and I'm just going to just make it a little bigger here so you can see Philip and his wife, his former wife here. Philip, there's something that kind of connects all of you, all of our guests today, and that is this huge sense of loss. When this happens to you as a survivor of gun violence, what is it initially that happens to you as a family?
Just shock is probably the first feeling.
Yeah.
And just grief and pain. It's hard to believe that this actually happened. Sometimes it just seems all too surreal to me, and still to this day, I can't believe that it happened.
Right.
And the important message is that this can happen to anybody at any time. I certainly never thought it was going to happen to me or Sheila, but it did, and it seems to be happening all too frequently.
Tell us, I know you talk about this, so it's hard to talk about, but tell us what happened to your wife.
My wife was working as a tribal administrator for a Native American tribe in Alturas, California. During the course of her work there, they discovered some signs of embezzlement by tribal leadership. And during a meeting the tribe was having to discuss how they were going to deal with this internally, the accused came to that meeting with 2 9mm handguns, shooting and killing 4 people, critically wounding 2 more. When she ran out of ammunition, she grabbed a butcher's knife from the office kitchen and tried to finish the job.
You know, Abby, you heard Philip talk about the initial feelings after the shooting. That's also something that people online are relating to. This is Sezin, who describes herself as a gun victim survivor. Sezin says, "It's basically affected every aspect of my life. PTSD is horrible to live with, and it never goes away." Abby, is that something that you can relate to as well?
Absolutely. I mean, it changes who you are as a person, the way you look at the world, how you interact with people, how you feel in certain situations. This is who we are now. It changes everything.
Can you tell us one of those examples? Give us one of those examples. I know, Philip, you're nodding there. So Abby, give us an example, Philip, then you can finish off.
Sure, just wanted to join in.
Yeah.
I mean, especially early on, it could be difficulty in a crowded room with loud noises, anxiety in certain situations. But the thing is, I sort of feel lucky to have those things. I hate that this is the reality for so many survivors, but we want to use our voices to help try to change our problem with gun violence in this country. Yes, we want people to know how difficult it is living with the day-to-day, putting your lives back together. But we also want to know that everybody can do something about this. You just have to find your niche and something that you feel strongly about. Different aspects of this problem really can come from people, average people, and make a change.
Philip.
And we really saw that, but with the Wear Orange campaign, that was just June 2nd, which would have been Hadiya's 18th birthday, right, Nate?
Yes, ma'am.
And it was an incredible experience being part of that campaign, because there were initiatives from different we had like 200 organizations on board together, working to raise awareness about gun violence, and it just had this organic quality where it just took on a life of its own, and it was I think trending worldwide on Twitter. So the passion is there. I think it's just a matter of getting people to take the plunge and maybe volunteer or do something about it.
Philip, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add onto what Abby was talking about. This is such a life-changing trauma that happens. Your entire world is completely pulled out from underneath you, to the point where after the fact you almost have a disconnection with the rest of the world. I think that's why as survivors we connect, because we're the only ones that really know this feeling and this pain and how great it is. Nothing in life could ever prepare you to deal with this. We've got this. It's this pain. It's not going to go away. It's us now. It's us for the rest of our lives. The question is, what do we do with it? How do we learn to live with it? And most of us, and it seems to be a reoccurring theme with survivors, we want to do something positive with it. We want to go forth and use this experience to help others somehow.
Well, Nate, I want to bring you in here because, of course, you heard Abby mention your daughter, Hadiya. There's this view that I want to post to you from someone online and get your thoughts on it. So Farhan says, look, remember, guns don't kill. It's people who kill. They can resort to other killing tools like knives. So I think this is one of those tweets that's using that theory that it is the people behind the weapon. It's not the weapon itself that needs to be regulated. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the weapon does have to be regulated, because if the weapon isn't regulated, it falls into the hands of the wrong people. This, like Philip has mentioned, this is life-changing for us. And sometimes we do look at it and say, hey, our life, we are looking at it and saying our lives will never be the same. But I'm not gonna sit up and blame an object that don't have a mind. We as humans have minds. We are the ones that pull the trigger. We are the ones that go in and decide to kill someone. So I can't blame the gun. I have to blame the person behind it.
Tell us about Hadiya. She's here on my laptop. I've got a Facebook picture. She's beautiful, stunning. I can tell from just that face, the vibrancy and the life that she had.
Well, she takes after her father.
Who is also extremely modest. Right, so January the 29th, 2013, your life changed forever. What happened?
Well, her friends had called her mother while she was at work. And her mother called me, and she was really discombobulated. She really didn't know how to put words together to even tell me that my daughter had been shot. So I proceeded to go to her. I was on my way to her godfather's house, who is Chicago PD. And I got him, and we was on our way to the hospital. I mean, when things like this happen, it's like everything just becomes a blur. You don't really, everything, it's like you're standing outside of your body, and you just like, what's going on here? And the next thing I could remember is they're bringing tissues into the doctors are bringing tissues into the room, and I'm like, whoa, what is this? Well, why are you bringing tissues in here? It ain't that serious. And next thing they know, I knew they telling us my daughter is gone. Her mother just was devastated. Fell to the floor, started crying. It was, it's just undescribable, the pain that you feel, knowing that you'll never see your child again.
And those memories that you have, they last a life. They stick with you forever. I know that after Sheila was killed, I tried to get as close to the crime scene as possible. I stood in front of the building, her office building, for well over 24 hours all that night, and I stood there until I watched them take 4 bodies out in body bags. And that's a memory that will haunt me for the rest of my life. I know what Nate mentioned, that when he found out, that's going to stick with him forever. It's a very painful experience. It's something that we endure, and it sticks with us forever.
Well, Jennifer, I can see you nodding there. I want to direct this tweet from you that we got from someone who's listening to these stories and then has this idea. This is El Tweeter, who says, gun supporters often say that if victims had had guns, it would have made a difference. What do the victims say? And of course, this is a sentiment that we've heard from the leader of the NRA. We've heard it from other politicians. What do you make of it?
Well, Malika, I don't know that that's true. I can tell you in my own personal shooting that if we'd been attacked with knives or bats or bricks, that the outcome would have been much different for us. My fiance at the time was a 5th degree black belt. We both taught martial arts for a living. So if there had been any opportunity for closer contact, we may have been hurt, but I don't think
And he
that
was
we would
armed
have
at the
been
time,
hurt.
wasn't he, Jennifer?
He was armed at the time, but couldn't get to his gun fast enough, because when you're ambushed, you know, your gun isn't out and ready to go. You know, it was holstered at the time, and there just wasn't an opportunity for him to get a shot off.
I mean,
I don't
these
think
things happen so fast. They
Indeed.
happen so fast. And
when
right.
it's all a surprise, there's absolutely nothing that you could do. I don't care if you have guns, whatever on you. If it's a surprise, there's nothing that you could do. Right. So that statement, whoever in the NRA made, is totally false, totally stupid. I mean, it's just untrue. Because
well,
even if you
I'd like
have
to add
gun, it can
go. That you know, in the case of the Alturas shooting, the entire shooting was caught on surveillance cameras that the building was equipped with. And I know from police who investigated the shooting and watched the videotapes, that told me personally, and they were close friends and colleagues of mine, they told me that even if they were in that room that day armed, there's nothing that they could have done. It happened so fast, and more than likely they would have been the first one shot.
Abby, what about Abby?
I think. Oh,
yeah. No, go ahead, Jennifer. Go ahead.
I often find it challenging how many people who can, in hindsight, you know, armchair quarterback these situations. They know about them in theory. We've lived them in reality. And with my own shooting, I had nothing but months laying in a hospital bed, going over it and over it and over it, not only by myself, but with law enforcement officers who are friends, you know, self-defense instructors, with folks who teach military strategy, with really smart people who do security and these sort of things for a living. And pretty much the consensus was, if David couldn't have saved us, no one could have.
See, Abby, when I remember what happened to you at Sandy Hook School, it's kind of seared in my mind, because my family are teachers. My sister teaches the same age of kids that you were teaching at the time. And everybody thought, okay, this is the threshold, this is the moment, everybody's gonna get rid of guns in America. Can you take us, I hate to ask you to do this, but I think it's really important. Take us into your classroom and what happened in that split second where you had to save your kids.
Well, you don't know where the shots are coming from, how close it is, how many people. We heard all 154 shots, but we didn't know all those other pieces. And you have to just make quick decisions, and you just do the best you can. I mean, my class and I were lucky enough to get out of there alive. And our hearts break for those who didn't. And anybody who says that if the principal had a gun, if any of us had a gun, we wouldn't even have known where to direct it at. The entire tragedy lasted 5 minutes. The carnage that occurred at our school is unfathomable. And to think that it took 5 minutes. So that argument is useless.
But I think the argument that's missing in this is that while there is conjecture that if we had added another gun, if one of the teachers had been armed, if the minister at Mother Emanuel had been armed, that maybe something could have been changed. But what we know for absolute certainty, that one less gun in those spaces absolutely would have made a difference.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And not to mention, there has been police officers that's frozen in a gunfight. So the thing is, just because you have a gun doesn't mean you're going to react. You don't know what you're going to do when that situation comes to you. You have absolutely, you don't know what you're going to do.
And with kids around, scared, crying, running around, trying to get cover.
And Abby, I have to take my hat off to you, because you kept you kept cool in
Well,
a really
not entirely,
situation.
but you know, we just did,
Some
all
people
of
couldn't
us.
have done that.
See people
Some
watching.
people couldn't
People watching this. Nate, your beautiful daughter was gunned down. Philip, your wife was killed in a mass shooting. Jennifer, you were going to get a sandwich with your fiance, and you were left unable to walk. You lost your fiance. Abby, you saved some of your school kids, but not all of them. Why does this keep happening in the US? Why does not just even one of those stories make a difference? Can you explain that to us?
I can't. I wish I could. It's embarrassing. I know we are making strides, but that we have not changed the trajectory of gun violence, mass shooting after mass shooting, and what goes on a daily basis in our cities across the country is unacceptable, and it is embarrassing.
Well, Philip, in trying to explain this, I actually want to go to you with this. This is Eric on Facebook. He says, gun culture is celebrated in the U.S. so much that most men and boys, and he says, I'm guilty as well, can't wait to buy our first weapon. It would take another amendment, and of course he's referring to the Second Amendment in the U.S., to change that, and it would be political suicide for any political leader to try to do it. So, Philip, I'm interested in your thoughts on that, also knowing that you are a gun owner yourself. What would you want to see happen?
Well, no one's talking about taking guns away from everybody, okay? It's just not going to happen. What I'm hoping is that we can find some common ground in the middle. It's more about making sure that guns don't get into the wrong hands of convicted felons, of domestic abusers, of the mentally ill, and it's also about keeping kids safe. It's about safe gun storage. You know, I think anybody with a sane mind, gun owner or not, can agree on those points. You just don't want to see guns fall into the wrong hands. And if we do have guns, we want to make sure that we're responsible gun owners. I think that's common ground that everybody can talk about. We can all come together on that.
How long, Phil, does that conversation take to have, and conversation then action?
Well, it looks like it hasn't happened yet. I mean, I have this conversation with guys that I work with people that I know who are also gun owners, you know, and I think that I can find some common ground with them, and they can see this, you know, they can understand this need.
What do you think the tipping
the really
point
sad
is?
thing is?
Yeah, go ahead.
The really sad thing is that, you know, not only we're not making, you know, you see after these horrific events, the really sad thing is that it seems to be, the trend seems to go the other way. Gun sales skyrocket, you know, CCW applications skyrocket, and the gun lobby, the NRA, they push for even looser gun laws. You know, so it's not that we're trying to make some headway in a positive direction. It seems like we're going the opposite direction.
You know, can I piggyback off of what Philip said? For some reason, we've all, I know I've said on multiple occasions that we are not trying to take the Second Amendment right from Americans.
The right to bear arms.
The right to bear arms. For some reason, they just don't hear that we just don't want criminals with guns. We don't want mentally insane people with guns. For some reason, that just like totally goes over everyone's head. And I can't understand why, throughout all of the conversations that I may have had with people, why isn't that, you know, why doesn't that stick out more than anything? And the only thing that keeps popping up in the conversation is, why are you trying to take guns away from us?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. It's almost like a paranoia.
I'm also a gun owner. Oops, sorry. I'm also a gun owner. And with my right to own a firearm also comes responsibility. And I think that's what we're talking about. Responsible gun owners need to ensure that we are safely storing, maintaining,
You're listening to Jennifer Longdon.
Carrying our weapons.
Jennifer, we're taking you to the post show. There's so much to talk about. Abby Clements, Philip Daniel Russo, Nat Pendleton, they've all survivors of gun violence in America. There's more to be talked about in the post show. Stream, go to aljazeera.com. Thanks for watching. All right, let's pick up on our conversation on gun violence in the United States. This is the post-show. Jennifer and Abby and Philip and Nate, a lot of people want to ask you, they want to debate gun control, gun rights with you. As you were sharing your stories, Malika was like, I don't know if I want to ask them this question. It feels really insensitive, but are you up for answering some of these questions? Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Sure.
What's the question?
What's the question? Of course,
Here we go.
that's a great question, of course, that you just asked. This is one of them, and we're getting lots of them like this. This is Ro, who says, look, this isn't even a hypothetical question. If more guns made people safer, then the U.S. would be the safest industrialized nation. But it's not. And Philip, I see
Bingo.
you nodding your head. You want to take that one on?
Well, I mean, just look at look at statistics. Look at the mass shootings, and there have been the good guy throws out the good guy with a gun theory, and that you have right there. The statistics saying that we're the leader in homicides, in gun violence. More guns is not the answer. We need to reduce the easy availability of guns, and that is the answer.
Anybody else want to chip in on that one? Any other thoughts?
I agree totally with Philip. I mean, you got to make guns more difficult to get for a criminal. I mean,
For criminal, yeah.
we don't have a problem with anyone that's legal getting a gun. I mean, if you are a responsible citizen, I don't see a reason why you shouldn't be able to have one.
Look, we have more regulations on owning an automobile than we do on a handgun.
Yes, we do.
You've got to take driver's ed. You've got to register your automobile. You have to provide insurance for it. You have to be, licensed for it. Renew that license on a regular basis.
Jennifer, you dropped in sorry, excuse me, Phil. Jennifer dropped in a bit of a bombshell towards the end of the conversation. She was like, I've got a gun. And we were just rapidly towards the end of the main show. Jennifer, people might be surprised that you enjoy shooting. You have a gun. Why has your experience not changed that?
I don't have a problem with responsible gun ownership. I respect the Second Amendment. I am a gun owner. I grew up in a culture of hunting and fishing, so I don't have an issue with individuals owning guns. What I do have an issue with is how easy it is for just anyone to get a gun. Felons, prohibited possessors because of domestic violence or specific mental health issues. And I really get a little queasy over the idea that anyone can go into, in my state, Arizona, we have some of the laxest gun laws in the nation. Anyone can go and buy any caliber weapon they want and open carry it. If you're 21 years old, you can concealed carry it without any training, without any acknowledgement of the responsibilities of safe gun ownership. So I have an issue there.
And
go, Abby.
What Jennifer is saying, the reason this is happening is because the NRA holds us hostage.
The National Rifle Association, for anyone who's not an American.
They have control over our lawmakers, and until that gets shut down, unfortunately, I think that this will continue. 90% of Americans are in favor of background checks that cover online sales, private sales, gun show sales. So it's really the NRA leadership that is perpetuating the violence.
What is it that
I
they
forgot
have?
the exact.
Yeah,
I forgot the exact percentage, but it's a great, it's a large percentage of the NRA that agree with us.
Huh.
Yeah, like 70%.
It's like 74% of gun owners or something like that.
So what is the hold they have over lawmakers? What is it? It's not like they're a big industry and making, maybe they are. I don't know. Explain this to me.
They contribute to campaigns.
Oh, right.
They do. The gun lobby does spend a lot of money funding campaigns for pro-gun, for candidates that they see that way. I have never seen an issue that our elected officials have been so willing to go against the majority of their constituents. In my own state, my U.S. senator said that's the beauty of the 6-year term. He expected that by the time his next election rolled around, we would forget that he had opposed us on this issue. And we need to hold our elected officials accountable. We need to make sure they understand we remember. And I wish our elected officials showed just a touch, just a thimbleful of the courage that Abby showed in her classroom, or that young man showed when he stood up in that church in Charleston and stood between the shooter and the rest of the congregation and tried to talk him out of shooting. Or when my fiance threw his body over mine to protect me, or when Alex Teves, who was murdered in Aurora, threw his body over his fiancée to shelter her. It happens time and time again in these moments of crisis. The bravery that comes from individuals. And if our elected officials could show just a touch of that, my God, what we could accomplish here.
You know, there's a similar point of view here online. This is also from a gun shooting survivor. This is Sezen again, who says another argument is that the NRA, National Rifle Association, as you guys have said, has helped create this toxic gun culture that we have here now. So another person pointing that finger. But there's also this view via Facebook. This is Tom Rizzo, who says, you almost have to laugh at what we're seeing here. Walmart, it's a big retailer here in the US, is considering removing all Confederate flag merchandise from its inventory in the wake of the Charleston shootings. But he goes on to say, you can still buy shotguns, rifles, ammunition, etc. So Nate, do you think that this is part of the problem, the ease to buy ammunition, the ease to buy guns, to buy weapons?
You know what? Philip said it best. He said that everyone should be accountable for the things that, like owning a car. You know, if we have to be tested every 4 years to buy a car, if we have to, go through such a rigorous thing to own a car, why shouldn't that be with a gun? So bringing that into Walmart, I mean, it should just be harder for people to acquire bullets, harder for them to acquire shotguns, harder for them to acquire something that's made to kill other human beings.
I think
go ahead, Phil.
I think that you should be able to go in as long as you're willing to pass a background check. You can demonstrate that you've had the proper training and that you're a responsible gun owner. You should be able to go in and buy a gun.
All right, so let me just work out who actually has a gun here. Not here, but who has guns? British person runs out the door screaming.
I own three firearms as well.
All right, Philip, what do you have? Do you have anything? Do you have a gun?
I have 3 guns. Yes.
Okay, and Nate, are you a gun owner?
You know what? My father was a district commander of the police force, and when I was younger, he trained me and my brother how to shoot. So I do know safety, how to shoot guns and stuff, but no, I do not carry a gun, nor do I own
See,
one.
Abby, when your youngster goes to visit another person's house, you ask that family a question. What's the question? Tell us that you asked that family.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He is not allowed to go over anyone's house if there's an unsecured firearm. And it's a difficult question to ask people. For some reason, it's easier to ask if your child has an allergy. Oh, could you, do you have peanut butter products in your house? Can you just make sure that is, locked away and somewhere where my kid can't get it? But it's somehow for some reason, it's difficult to ask that question. He knows that that's the rule in our house. It's not an easy one to follow, but that's what we do.
Jennifer, there's one thing that we haven't even talked about, and it shocked me when I learned it in doing the research for this show. It's also reflected here in this tweet from Imali, who says, I'm shocked to learn that $6.2 million is the indirect cost of gun violence in the U.S., and she's referencing a figure from Mother Jones from a report from earlier this year, what does gun violence really cost? So Jennifer, in your own life, personally speaking, what was the cost to you?
I think that we calculated the first 10 years of my injury at about $5 million so far. And that's just in the costs of surgeries and equipment and ICU visits, repeated ICU visits, lost wages, those kind of things. The soft costs are incalculable.
Tell us about your van, for instance, how your insurance on your van. To give people one example that makes them go, oh my goodness, I hadn't thought about that.
Right. So the vehicle that I drive has to be specially modified to accommodate me as a wheelchair user. So people are shocked to know that I drive a $65,000 vehicle. It's a 2007 cargo van. But the lift inside of it, the hand controls, the modified steering column, all of those kind of things have costs. Along with that, my insurance costs are double what they were prior to my injury. And there is no reason for that other than the modification to my equipment.
Right. All right. See, I'm listening to all of you. You have remarkable stories, resilience, and now you are all campaigners. If you've been very candid with me, I'm just going to go around all of you. Where are you in your campaign to make there be better rules so we don't have Sandy Hook, we don't have a movie theatre being shot up, we don't have a church being shot up, we don't have a young girl in her prime being gunned to death in a park? How close are we to getting the sort of safety regulations, the rules that you want, Nate?
You know what? I really don't know how close I am. Only thing I can say is that I'm just going to keep pushing forward. Every child matters. So, you know, if I can touch one child, if I can, you know, get through to one kid, that's one kid that won't do something crazy.
Philip?
Well, it's definitely a long road that we have to go. You know, I have the conversation whenever I can with people, again, trying to get them to see the middle ground. I'm sure that the staunchest gun rights advocate, if they had this tragedy fall on them, they would feel the same way that we do. The work that I do is trying to make sure that they never experience this. You know, I try to put a face and a personality on the crime and my wife's death to show the human factor. All too often we're shown, you know, legislation and facts and figures. I want people to relate to, you know, the human factor, how this affects people's lives.
Jennifer, how close are you in your campaigning?
I don't know how close we are, but I know that my resolve hasn't changed. I know that today, 260 people or more are going to get a notification that someone they love's been shot. I know that tomorrow, 88 of them are going to start planning a funeral. And I know that 7 of them are going to be buying coffins for children. So what I know is wherever we are, we're not far enough today, not for those 260. And we're going to keep going until we have universal background checks, until we can ensure safe storage and some safety education for gun owners.
Abby, you're part of a group called Mums Demand Action. When do you think you'll get the action that you've been demanding?
I don't know. I mean, we're just going to keep tackling one state at a time, one community at a time. I think that this is a social. This is both changing the fabric of society, the way we look at guns, the way we talk about violence, the way we deal with racism in our country, and it's also about the legislation. I'm still a teacher, and like Nate said, all kids matter, and I will personally continue to help spread the message of peace, being a good person, doing the right thing, and at the same time advocating for stronger gun laws.
I'll give this last word
Jimmy,
to...
before we run out of time, could I just
I want to give this one last word to Dave in the community, and then I'd love actually to hear what you have to say. But this is Dave, and he says,
yes, ma'am.
If you want to put the fire out, you don't pour petrol on it. Tougher gun laws are needed, not softer ones. Jennifer?
Well, I used that analogy myself just yesterday. I can't say anything more than I think he nailed it. But the thing that I was starting to say, Malika, is that you know, from the tweets and posts that you've been sharing with us, there are a number of survivors who are hearing us and maybe hearing survivor stories for the first time today. And what I want to say to those individuals is we're with you, and you're now part of our family. That Nate and Philip and Abby and I have all come to know each other through the Everytown Survivor fellowship program. And if you're a survivor of gun violence, I encourage you to get in touch with Everytown and join us.
Jennifer Longden, Philip Daniel Russo, Nat Pendleton, Abby Clements, you really moved us today, and it's not just about moving us, it's about sharing your stories and actually making people think about gun rights and gun control. You definitely did that. Thank you for being part of the stream. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love you guys.
Love you too. And I
Love
hope to
you.
see you soon.
Do you hear
Philip,
that?
you my new brother.
All right.
Yep, we'll talk.
All right. Going to get a box of tissues. Thanks, everybody. Take care.